Bill and I want to take just a few minutes, tell you about the Global Leadership Summit and this incredible group of leaders and experts that have agreed to join us this year. Well, Bill, last year we had a record attendance at the summit, about 150,000 leaders in 476 countries, or actually 476 cities, 82 countries, many languages. And I know many of the people that are tuning in have been to a summit, but many have not, maybe haven't heard of it. You know, it's our 17th year doing this. I know your schedule, it's quite packed. Last thing it needs is another conference. Why do you care so much about the summit every year?
I actually think about the summit as the most important thing on my schedule, so I don't tack it on to the end. It's front and center. Leadership matters in every organization, business, military, athletics, church, NGOs. You know, as a leader gets better, everything gets better. I like to say when a leader gets better, everyone wins. Yeah. The team wins, the constituents win, the culture wins. So it's all about making leaders better. And my experience is when you gather leaders in a room and you put a fantastic faculty in front of them and they teach well and they stir up the action a little bit, God uses that every single time. I've never seen it not work. So it's the highlight of my year. I put it on my calendar first.
And why should any of the leaders that are tuning in pay attention to the summit? I mean, we're early in the year. The summit's going to be in August. Why should they care about the summit?
Well, most leaders are busy, and they get so busy in the day-to-day leadership functions that maybe their calendar gets away from them, and pretty soon it's a month before the summit, they're on vacation, they've got a business trip planned or a ministry retreat or something. So I like to get people thinking about it at our church anyway, very early in the year. And I say, get it on the calendar and get your space reserved. Leaders know they need an annual injection of vision, encouragement, skill development. They know that deep down. They mean well most of the time. But again, the pressures of leadership are relentless. And unless some other leader says, okay, we're going to lift our heads up from what we're all battling every day, and we're going to put a date on a calendar, and then we're all going to come, and we're going to get stirred up, and we're going to have an injection of vision and enthusiasm and skill training so that we get better. If you kind of take that approach, works pretty well.
Yeah, well, one of the things that we didn't anticipate when this thing started was how broad of an appeal the summit would have. I mean, we have churches from just almost 100 denominations that come to the summit. We have leaders even beyond just all the different kinds of churches. We have leaders that are from the business sector and the education sector and healthcare and sports and entertainment, the government. Lots of civic leaders come as well. Why do you think the summit is having such a broad spectrum of appeal?
Because it's about the subject of leadership, which is sort of trans-denominational, trans-cultural, it's transdisciplinary. So everybody who leads anything needs to get better. And everyone who leads anything, when they're feeling like they're getting better and they're building better teams and casting cleaner visions, solving problems, raising up leaders under them, you know, there's an adrenaline rush that comes with knowing that you're getting better in the organization, the church is getting better, the business is running smoother. So yeah, this crosses all lines.
Yeah, and what was really amazing to me is to see that, I mean, it crosses even socioeconomic lines. Yeah. Because I thought, well, maybe the summit's just for a niche of well-resourced churches or something like that. That's just not the case.
Jimmy, I remember attending one of our global summit sites in Oslo, Norway. Norway is one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And you watched all these very sophisticated, educated people file into the venue, and they were riveted on every talk of the summit. Then I've been in under-resourced countries in Africa, Central, South America, Asia, and I've watched people literally walk into the summit barefoot. And they sit down, limited literacy, limited experience in life, equally riveted. People understand when faculty talk about leadership. It's not that mysterious of a subject matter. There's some skills, there's some functions and some qualities about leaders that can be understood at a lot of levels. And so we keep the challenge level real high, but we've just learned that people in all walks of life can benefit from it.
You know, Bill, I hear from a lot of leaders that a little bit of why they're kind of energized to make the summit a part of their annual schedule is that the summit's kind of a collection of these tensions or paradoxes that they walk into, like the paradox of being unapologetically Christian, yet very open-minded to learn from the world's best experts anywhere we can find them. Or it's very leader-focused for sure, but it's very inclusive of everybody because everybody is a person of influence and can get better. Or a tension of it being clearly a world-class global perspective event, but without local ownership, you know, it doesn't work. People that own this cause of raising the bar of leadership in their communities. And then the last one that I hear is that there's this balance and tension that we get good response from between skill development and inspiration. Like last year, Stephen Furtick did a great job on the inspiration side, but Henry Cloud really helped us out, helped us understand how to deal with, you know, the wise, foolish, and evil people in our lives, and gave us some skills that I know for me, changed the way I was dealing with people the very next week. Yeah. So, I mean, how do you respond to some of these tensions or paradoxes?
I think it is the tension that makes the summit what it is. You can feel it when you walk into the venues because you know that it emanates from a local church, Willow Creek Community Church in the suburbs of Chicago. But then again, you know, a third of the crowd is business people who might not be people of faith. And so we lay that out right at the beginning. We say, you know what, this is a Christ-centered leadership event, but we're not going to make you do anything that isn't consistent with your own spiritual journey right now. So respect us, we'll respect you, let's get on with it. Yeah. And so that tension is cool. We don't dumb anything down. Yeah. And we're trying to help leaders change our world. So we take the gloves off, we get after it, and I think when you feel the kind of tension in the air and some of these paradoxes that are just, right in the atmosphere, that's a lot of what makes, you know, the whole environment around the summit just crackle with energy. Yeah. I mean, you feel it in every venue, any place I've ever been in the world.
Yeah. And Bill, I know you are on an annual constant summit faculty member search. In your mind, what's the grid that you go through to say, now that would be an awesome faculty member for the summit?
Yeah. First thing I look for is someone who has actually led something.
Yeah.
Theorists drive pure leaders crazy. We listen to all their theories and we go, but what have you built? Have you ever had to meet a payroll? Have you ever had to hire and fire somebody? Have you ever had to lead through an economic downturn? Have you ever had to lay off a quarter of your people? You know, come on. So occasionally we'll have a theorist in to, you know, give us a little input. Mostly we go, what have you built? And then how did you build it? I mean, let's just not hear your story. What skills were involved? What toolkit did you have to, you know, use in order to build this? And how might we benefit from learning about what tools you used? We also look for faculty with what I call edge. You know, we don't want it all tidied up. We want people who live in it, who experience the rawness of leadership. I was in a 5.5-hour leadership meeting last night. It went till very late. It was animated. We had some tough issues to resolve. And that's the world I live in. So I don't want someone standing up there and telling me that it's all neat and sanitized. It's not true. Yeah. So I want someone who's living in it, who's got the edge of leadership, who's got new tools, new ideas, and who can talk about it, you know, compellingly.
Yeah. And Bill, you don't just, to that point of just real practicality, you're not just encouraging leaders to come to the summit and you prepare talks for the summit. Like, you lead this church. I mean, how are you using the summit in your own challenge of leading this church?
Yeah, well, I am doing that, I assure you. And so, you know, I give a couple talks at the summit, but the whole rest of the time, I'm sitting in my seat taking notes, learning from these people. I have my entire staff. It's mandatory. Every single full and part-time staff member at Willow Creek must be a part of the summit. It's a part of their leadership development. I try to get every leader in our church to come, And I mean business about it. How is our church going to move ahead unless its leaders are fired up, same page, same vision, same values, moving all together? So I take it very seriously.
You know what's been really cool, because this is my church too, is to hear how the language starts to change over time. And now that you know, our congregation, lots of them have been to multiple summits, I hear them referring back to, well, you remember that Patrick Lencioni talk? You remember that Marcus Buckingham thing, that Jack Welch thing, or Jeff Mannion, or whatever? It's really cool because now there's a common experience. And so a culture starts to get developed. We're having common language, common experience, and we're starting to move together, you know, as leaders.
So the very talk you mentioned a little while ago, Henry Cloud's talk, wise people, foolish people, evil people. That comes up once or twice a week in my meetings around the church. Someone will be describing a very difficult person in the church or in the community that they're trying to deal with, and someone else in the room will say, is it a foolish person? Is it an evil person? What's so difficult? We know what those categories are. We know actually what to do if you're dealing with
now you have a strategy.
Exactly. So sometimes a talk, as you say, can change, you know, a language in an environment, and it really helps everybody to be on that same page together.
Now, a month ago, you stood in front of the entire congregation and you challenged them to come to the summit. Who did you say the summit was for to the Willow congregation?
Yeah, I said certainly if you have any leadership responsibilities at home, at work, in the community, at the church, certainly this is a no-brainer. You got to come because you got to get better. The scriptures say in Romans 12:8, if you've been given a leadership gift, you got to use it diligently. We're gonna give an account, every single one of us. What did we do with a leadership gift or talent or responsibility that God invested in us? So I go after our people and I say, you want to give a good accounting someday. You want to be the best you can be. But then I also tell the rest of the people in our congregation, you might wind up in a leadership position 2 years from now, 5 years from now. Get ready. There's so much spiritual inspiration and spiritual infusion of energy that anybody would benefit from coming.
Any final words of encouragement or challenge that you would give leaders that are tuning in right now as to what it takes to really leverage this experience to the max, not just for themselves, but their church or organization that they're leading?
People will read the passion in the leader who's talking about it. If it's just an announcement, if you stand up and say, you know, we have Mother's Day coming up, and then we have Father's Day, and then we have the 4th of July, and then we have the summit. If you put it on an even par with everything else your church does, that's how people will think about it. I stood up the third week in January and said the most important thing happening between June and September in this church is the Leadership Summit.
Yeah, and here at Willow, we're like about 80% full right now. So it's incredible to see what's going to happen when people are intentional about carving out that time. And I just know from past experience, every time we create space for God to work, He does. He shows up.
It's like I said earlier, I do leadership training and leadership coaching all around the world, as you know, in lots of cities and environments. I have never seen God not work when we gather some leaders together and we talk about the subject matter. It's almost, you know, a theological covenant of some sort is the way I think about it in my mind. It's like God says, Bill, if you'll gather leaders together and try to train them, I'll show up every time because leadership matters. You know, the local church is the hope of the world, but the future of it rests primarily in the hands of its leaders. And so if we want to see churches reach their full potential, leaders have to get better.
Well, thank you so much, Bill, for your comments and for joining us here. I know that I don't think either of us realized some 18 years ago when we had that very simple conversation in your office about starting the Leadership Summit that it would have this kind of a broad reach and appeal all around the world. But I think I can speak for the both of us that as long as we sense that God is using it, we're going to commit to making it better every year.
Absolutely.